Hey guys, Ulysses here. Today I wanted to make a follow-up video on the Leica Q review video that I made previously. That video was quite well received, so I wanted to make a follow-up because I've been using the camera for 2+ years now. Things have changed just a bit, but it's been kind of like my main camera for a long time now. In this video, I wanted to go through some of the good points and the bad points, follow up on them, and then see how the camera still holds up. Now that, the camera's like 6-7 years old, I think. So yeah, let's do that. Keep in mind though that I might be biased because I have a few photographs that I've taken with the Leica Q that have received awards. So the camera holds a dear place in my heart, and this video will be more of sharing love towards that camera and just how amazing it has been as an addition to my lineup. To be 100% transparent, I use the Leica Q-P, which is pretty much the same camera as the Leica Q, which was, released 6 or 7 years ago. Now the Q2 is available and has been available for a few years now too. But they're very, very similar cameras, so I think you can refer to this video even if you're thinking of purchasing the Leica Q2. In the previous video, I mentioned versatility. This time, I'll try to break it down a little bit more now that, again, I've used it for a while. Now that I've used the camera for a few years now, what I noticed was definitely the size, the build shape, and also the combination of the f1.7 lens is something very specific and unique to this camera. After using a few DSLRs, mirrorless cameras, other compact cameras, just the combination of that size and again, the f1.7 is something that I haven't yet seen in other camera models. And this does create the versatility that it has. Like, it's a great travel camera, just because it's so light. You can have it in, literally, you can hold it in one hand. You can, it's great for street photos too, candid photography. I've taken portraits with it before. I know photographers, fashion photographers even, that use the Leica Q as one of their main cameras too. It's great for landscapes. I know people that use it for architecture, just honestly like anything from indoors to outdoors. The build is something quite unique too. I think the cube shape, it doesn't tilt, the lens isn't too heavy, the body isn't too heavy. It's the perfect build. So when you have it around your neck too, it sits straight up instead of leaning a certain direction. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that I like clothes, probably. Today's sponsor happens to be a clothes brand, which is Into the AM. If you're wondering where I got this really nice plain white t-shirt, this also came from Into the AM. What I've been wearing in this video is a white basic tee. I would say it's not like a pure white. It is very slightly on the yellow end, which I really like. It's very usable. I've actually washed it already a few times and it's not falling apart. Even if you're heavily invested into clothes, I think, and you have the most complex pieces, you still need a basic white t-shirt or a basic, color t-shirt. Basic t-shirts are just so usable. You can slap on anything like a shirt or a jacket on top, then voila, you got yourself a friggin' outfit, boy. These basic tees are very comfortable actually, and Into the AM provides them at a very reasonable price. You can actually get a bundle of 3 for $45, which is very, very nice. I have a link down below in my description box, and if you use that, you can get 10% off of your purchase. So please go use that if you're interested. Again, thank you Into the AM for sponsoring this video, and we will get back to talking about cameras. 2021 is coming to an end soon. Mirrorless cameras the technology has been insane recently, but the autofocus on this camera still holds up, which is just, it's amazing to me, I think. Again, it's the combination of just everything. The size, f1.7, fast autofocus. This all just makes the camera such a great package. And when you want to, you can switch to manual focus if that suits you better. And that can be done pretty seamlessly as well. The next point about the image quality is still fantastic. The colors, the rendition is very realistic, I would say, and it's very neutral in my opinion. The micro contrast is good though, so it seems saturated, but it's just nothing funky going on in my opinion. I think I break this down just a little bit more in my previous video, so if you're interested in that, please go take a look. But the image quality still holds up. 24 megapixels, you know, on the normal Leica Q is still fine, definitely. Especially if you like a little bit more of a gritty feel, I don't think there's a problem with that. If you want more resolution, I would advise you to get the Leica Q2. Although I haven't heard that, honestly, like after a few years, I've heard that the image quality doesn't really change much from the original Leica Q. So if you're interested in the Q2, please go check that out. I've never used the Q2 myself, so refer to some other video, please. Another thing I wanted to talk about with the Leica Q is just the simplicity. Why can't other cameras be this simple? I just don't get it. You know, these days I do use mirrorless cameras, even for candid photography sometimes, and I do walk around with many different types of cameras these days. But the simplicity with the Q, it just cannot be beaten by other cameras. Like even with the Leica M, right? You have to manually focus, which means you need two hands available. When you have an umbrella in the hand, you know, or if you're eating breakfast on the go or something, you can't really take photos. You can, it's a little bit hard though, but with the Q, you can just have it in one hand and the dial is just right there. You can also use the autofocus too. It just works. It works. And you don't have to carry any other shit around with you too. You know, there's no ISO dial, but I don't really change ISO too much, honestly, especially when you can go all the way down to f1.7. There's not much of a point in changing ISO, especially during daytime. You can just set it to like ISO 400 or even 800 and just keep on changing aperture, and then that pretty much seals the deal, I think. Oh yeah, also DNGs, just that adds to simplicity too. Why don't other companies use DNG? I don't get it. I love DNG because when you plug it into a computer, when you download files, you can look at the DNG right there on your computer. RAW files, you can't, which sucks. Maybe you get more flexibility, I don't know. But the concept of being able to look at an image and judge the image based on like a thumbnail imprinted inside your computer is amazing, and the workflow with that saves so much time and energy. The last point I wanted to mention, this might be a little bit controversial, but I want to say actually price is a positive with the Leica Q. Now that the Leica Q has been out for a while now, you can get a pretty good used deal out of it. $2,000, $3,000 or so, if I'm not wrong. Which is like, you know, these days, you know, people still say Leicas are expensive. I agree, I totally agree. But if you look at the flagship mirrorless models these days for any other company, they're expensive as shit, man. It's crazy, just everything is expensive these days. So it doesn't, you know, and the Q, you know, because it's an integrated lens, you just buy it and you kind of forget about it, which has been, I would say, a pretty good investment on my end, actually. Now, let's go on over to the downsides of the camera, which I've noticed, you know, by using the Q for the past years. Also note that some of these points may be addressed by the Leica Q2 and may be specific to the Leica Q or the Q-P. The obvious downside to the camera is that the lens is non-interchangeable. The fact that the camera is integrated with the lens, which is non-interchangeable, is fine, but I think currently the thing is, with the social environment we're in with the pandemic, sometimes, especially shooting outside, the 28mm may feel a little bit too far sometimes. Now that there's less people, there's more space in public areas, and it's hard to get into people's faces, or honestly you shouldn't be doing that, I think. So that is one downside that wasn't foreseeable, I think. You know, and because in certain cases, if you want to take candid photographs of people or things a little bit more up close, I think now it's smarter to use a tighter lens than forcing yourself into people's personal space, I think. But again, I still think the versatility of this camera still makes it usable. For example, like if you wanted to do a project or series indoors, you can use this camera too because of the wide focal length. Because of the low f-stop at 1.7, you know, it's great for indoor shooting as well. So I'm putting this as a negative, but at the same time, only for very, very specific, I think, people. Another downside that I've noticed, especially after doing my exhibition and doing a lot of print runs these days, I've noticed that the photos that I've taken with the Q on the 35mm crop mode, obviously lower megapixel count, right? That the resolution is a little bit lower, which I personally actually am fine with. I'm fine with gritty because a lot of the time my images are about structure and color. It's not really about a specific subject or a specific scene and portraying it in the most beautiful manner. But you know, if you were, for example, a landscape photographer or an architecture photographer or something in the realms of that, I guess, and you wanted to print big, this can be a problem, I think. Again, maybe this is solved with the Leica Q2 because it has 2 times, I think, the megapixel count of the Leica Q. I'm not entirely sure, but that is something that you may see as a flaw. But this is a little bit weird too, because this can also be a positive, because these days it's hard to get grit in the images, you know, it's hard to get a good image that looks kind of old, I guess, and with too much resolution that becomes harder and harder. With too much technical proficiency that becomes, you know, again, harder as cameras progress in technology, I think. I have 2 more points. These are very, very specific, honestly, so maybe it's not too important, but one thing that I noticed is that the on and off switch is super flimsy, and it just feels really awkward. But again, you know, I believe this was addressed in the Leica Q2, and the on and off switch thing changed, or the system around that changed. And the next point was that I noticed that under very specific circumstances, when I change from manual focus to autofocus while the camera is on, the camera just glitches and freezes. And I have to take out the battery and put it back in order to refresh the camera. Maybe this was something specific to my camera, I don't know, but I've heard this from other photographers too. Okay, thanks everyone for watching this video about an antiquated camera. I think it's 6 years old or something. But it still has a cult following. It still is a great contender for the 28mm focal length, I think. And now that the price is going down and down, I think people like GR users are considering buying the camera. I've seen people switching. I've seen people be less hesitant about their purchase with the camera. Lastly, a quick reminder, especially after my first video, people think that I am some representative of Leica or something sometimes, and talk about their complaints with the camera and send me feedback on the camera and talk about, you know, very certain like spec issues. Look, I'm happy that, you know, the camera seems something symbolic to me, I guess, but I am not gaining anything from Leica. You know, I'm happy that people have bought the camera because of my previous video, but keep in mind that I'm not getting anything from that, okay? Also, some advice for people that are really considering getting this camera. I'll give you a few pointers to photographers that are using the camera. Me, there's this guy on Instagram called Ferris Whiskey, Sam Ferris, go check him out. Jesse Marlowe uses the Leica Q, go check him out. Andrea Torre, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. She's an amazing documentary photographer. Greg Williams, he shoots portraits of famous people. I don't know him too much, but like if you're looking for portraits with the Q, then there you go. I know that Joe Greer used to use the Q, and there are a few photographs of him using the Q on Instagram, so go check him out as well. Okay, thanks guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one as this YouTube grind goes on, baby. It's been a while since I've done a camera gear-ish video, so I hope you liked it. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Sayonara. Bye-bye.